Democracy FM 98.1D. Graham.
Graham McKinley, the former British Defence Attaché here, has lived in Freetown for 10 years. On his weekly radio show, he says he tells it like it is.
And they should protect the civilian population, respect human rights. So, IUF, the game is up. Come back on side, please, and let's have some peace in this beautiful country.
He says the war is about one issue: rebel attempts to control the country's vast supply of diamonds.
These people have nothing, and they believe that by a little handful of diamonds is going to enrich their lives. And it has enriched a lot of people, but it's an extraordinary, pervasive corruption. It's difficult to explain just how the diamond is the cause of all of this, but it is the diamond. It's nothing else.
Out on the digs, it's backbreaking work. These labourers only get paid when they find diamonds, but they receive a pittance compared to the wealth amassed by owners and traders. After launching their war in 91, the RUF quickly seized these lucrative holdings and threatened the big foreign-owned diamond mines. Years of anarchy and together followed. The nation was destroyed by war and the ever-changing political alliances that confounded first a Nigerian-led West African intervention force, then the peacekeepers of the United Nations. The only success story amid the military failure, a group of foreign mercenaries hired by the government in 1995.
I'm Gavin, and I work with Executive Outcomes, and I've been listening for a long time now. They sent us to this beautiful place to work.
This mercenary force of white and black South Africans took less than a month to push the rebels out of the Kono diamond area.
Executive Outcome cleared Kono in 95-96 with about 56 men, and they held it with 110.
Allegations emerged that the Executive Outcomes deal centred on receiving diamond mining concessions as payment, an arrangement denied by the group.
Branch Energy and Executive Outcome were linked together. Branch Energy was the diamond mining company, and Executive Outcome was the military arm.
On the verge of military defeat, the rebels gained a surprising victory. Playing on international concerns over the morality of the mercenary diamond deal, they signed a peace agreement on the condition that Executive Outcomes would leave the country. In 97, the South Africans were sent packing.
There was pressure from the international community using private military organisation. I think the World Bank also had some input on it, but they were just about to achieve the aim when they were forced to leave.
Without a doubt, Executive Outcome saved this country at a time when nobody else was prepared to do it. When they withdrew, the situation became worse, and it deteriorated into the situation it's in now.
The insanity reached an all-time low in January last year, when we briefly seized Freetown, slaughtering 6,000 people. Hundreds, perhaps thousands of others had limbs hacked off with machetes, the trademark punishment of the RUF. Out of the chaos, the United Nations brokered another peace deal that incredibly placed RUF leader Fode Sanko in the government lines. A United Nations peacekeeping force, UNAMSL, was sent in to supervise the peace process. But in May this year, it all fell apart. In a huge blow to the UN's credibility, the rebels took 500 peacekeepers hostage. Outraged protesters marched on Sanko's Freetown home. The rebel leader's bodyguards opened fire, killing more than
doesn't.
The people of this country struggle. They have been crying for war. And that cry was answered by the diplomatic.
Senko was later arrested. The rebels reportedly at the gates of the city once more. With the UN mission in chaos, Britain, colonial power here, landed paratroopers to defend the city and evacuate foreigners.
For arms, I ask you.
They stayed for nearly 2 months until the shaken UN called in reinforcements.
I think the failure of UNAMSO to start its operation really put the frighteners on the United Nations, if you like, made them realize that they've got to do something serious.
When it comes to UN peacekeeping in Africa these days, the first world provides the money and angst. The third world provides the soldiers. No first world country wants to commit troops to an African quagmire. The result in Sierra Leone, 13,000 poorly trained, poorly equipped peacekeepers from Africa and the subcontinent, many of whom refuse to obey orders. And that criticism from the man who commands them, Indian General Vijay Kumar Jetli.
By that, I mean troops who are going to deliver, not who are going to question or who are going to deter. And it cannot be that I start getting questioned, why me here and why not so-and-so there and so on and so forth. I think that's very childish and I think it's very immature. I don't think that's required.
The UNAMSO commander wears a relieved look these days. In a rare victory for the UN, his troops have just rescued the last of the peacekeepers taken hostage back in May. Stung by constant criticism of his command, he takes the extraordinary step of publicly airing his doubts over the entire concept of UN peacekeeping.
I think that it's time to take a stock of the manner in which we conduct peacekeeping operations. Firstly, the mental preparedness to do this is lacking with most countries who contribute. There is a misconception, and I'm not being cynical, there's a misconception in the minds of certain people that peacekeeping means being very well turned out, wearing a nice blue hat or a cap, and being in a white vehicle with a blue flag fluttering around, and you're marching up and down, and that's peacekeeping. It's not.
This nice, neat UN world doesn't extend beyond Freetown. Out in the countryside, the peacekeepers control little more than the ground they stand on, and this is the safest way to travel. We're in the belly of the beast for a ride in the world's biggest helicopter to Daru, the UN's most remote outpost, just 20 kilometres from the border with Liberia. Below, the scarred landscape of the diamond fields, controlled by the rebels, who each year smuggle up to $100 million worth of stones out through Liberia in return for weapons. White UN vehicles now camouflaged, the 800 Indian UN troops at Daru have abandoned any pretense of peacekeeping. Just days earlier, these men rescued 230 colleagues held hostage, fought an 80-kilometre running battle with the RUF all the way back to this base. Beyond lies the jungle, which belongs to increasing numbers of rebels.
On the eastern side, they're as close as about 2 kilometers. And on the western side, behind us, about 3 to 4 kilometers away.
We've just left the Indian Battalion compound. We're getting out on patrol with a group of Indian Gurkhas. Somewhere out here in the jungle, there's between 2,000 and 3,000 RUF. Reports that now that they're amassing out here somewhere. The job of these guys is to ascertain what their intentions are. Hopefully today, not hostile. The Gurkhas, though few in number, are the best troops in the UN contingent. Fresh from fighting insurgents in Indian Kashmir, they know only too well how vulnerable they are out here, with the rebels indistinguishable from local people. Attention is increased by reports that army officers from neighbouring Liberia have been seen advising the rebels. Without the support of Liberian President Charles Taylor, this war could not continue. The patrol moves to within a kilometre of the RUF positions, and still no sign of the rebels. To everyone's relief, we turn back. I notice the blue helmets are now being painted green. Why is that?
Well, see, helmet as such designates a peacekeeper. It's a very conspicuous thing.
And you've gone beyond that.
Yeah, we have gone beyond that and understand the situation demands.
Back at the base camp, the group of rebels has just surrendered their weapons to the UN. Kidnapped as 13-year-olds, they were conscripted into the RUF as child soldiers. 7 years on, and at the risk of being killed by their own side, they've made their escape.
I love my country. So I just sing and sit down and think work my mind. Fight is not good. So I just can't be myself. We are the one to fight again.
Disarming and demobilising fighters of all factions is a key part of the UN mandate. While an international tribunal has just been created, one day hopes to try the RUF leadership, the rank and file get an amnesty.
The government of Sierra Leone has granted you amnesty. Amnesty means that, excuse me to say, the sins that you have committed against the government of Sierra Leone, fight alongside her and doing all those things. He has forgiven you.
They'll join hundreds of other surrendered rebels, renegade soldiers and their families who form a welcoming committee for us at the gates of the demobilisation camp. All say they're sick of fighting, but many still support the RUF.
Yes, yes. I was spending with them 8 years. Which is
It's a long time.
it's a long time. It's a long time. I know what's fighting because earlier they are not fighting for a power. Also was not looking for money, but we're looking for our liberation, our freedom.
Into this somewhat surreal scene marches the nemesis of the RUF, a group of the local pro-government militia, tribal hunters called come agents. They rely on their elaborate dress and black magic when they go headhunting for rebels.
The one also in behind, the picture gives to any type of weapon. Obviously, that weapon we don't buy it.
Has he seen this work? Has he actually seen it?
Yeah, not many times because it is the blessing it takes to go to the bush to fight. A knife like this is easy to cut their heads. First of all, he will shout at his enemy, then he falls down, then he becomes weak.
And you cut his head off.
Yes.
For those in the camps, it's a ticket to a better life, signing up to be part of Britain's strategy to fight this war by proxy. Having little faith in the UN's ability to resolve the conflict, the British have decided to help Sierra Leone's army to beat the rebels. A British army training team is turning out 1,000 new recruits every 6 weeks.
Looking for the big guys, okay? The guys that can think. This is the weapons that will win any war. We use it in the British Army, okay, because we know it's a good weapon, and that is why you have it, we'll put it into practice.
Only those with previous combat experience need apply, and it doesn't really matter which side they fought for. Would you recruit a soldier, as some have done, turned renegade, or have joined the RUF, then surrendered and come in?
We wouldn't have a problem with that because the end product is the same. When we screen people, the necessary criteria is their military experience. Where they gain that experience is not relevant because what we turn them into is exactly the same as the man standing next to him and the man standing next to him. They are accountable, well-trained soldiers that will remain loyal to the government because the government is correctly supporting him.
Across Freetown lies another camp, but one without hope. It's home for a couple of hundred war victims and their families. Occasionally, they'll attempt a sad display of self-sufficiency. Contrary to popular belief, 60% of the amputees in this camp were attacked by machete-wielding soldiers, not rebels. In this war, large numbers of soldiers have deserted, joining the rebels, forming a third renegade force that often matches the RUF in the brutality stakes.
One of the common traits within this war has been the trait of betrayal. You know, civilians have been betrayed by us again and again and again, who instead of protecting them, end up abusing them, extorting from them, seeing them as a means of enriching themselves.
Human Rights Watch fears the cycle of violence is set to continue, as some of the most notorious offenders, the Sierra Leone Army, SLA, have already been recruited into the British training program.
There's effectively no screening as far as we can see that going on. And you're going hearing cases. Just the other day I heard of a case of an SLA lieutenant who was involved in an extortion ring. And there's another suspected case of SLAs looting villages. So, you know, you see some of the same behaviors as the rebels within the new Sierra Leone Army who are supposed to be protecting the civilians.
Human rights training, is that an issue here? You run through that with these people?
We have found that the law of armed conflict lectures concentrating on the how one deals with prisoners, how one deals with civilians, how one deals with casualties is a very well received lecture.
With the British now busily retraining the army, the UN has changed tack, attempting to starve the rebels of funds by engineering an international ban on the sale of illicit diamonds. But Graham McKinley says the war will not end until the rebel-held diamond fields are retaken.
The diamond mining areas, which are the main breadwinner, if you like, of this country, and that's where their main resources are. And at the moment, those are in the hands of the RUF. Now, if the United Nations is unable to clear that, or Sierra Leone military, whose job it should be, are unable to clear that, then I think that the time may come to invite a private military company in to do so.
Neil Ellis argues that the UN has deployed 13,000 peacekeepers at $100 million a year for no result.
If the United Nations would be, I believe that private military organizations would be the way to go. Say 500 men is a good force. Your personnel costs will probably be in the region of, say, plus minus, like a rough guess now, plus minus 20 million a year. And buying a couple of helicopters and ammunition, maybe another 20 million with aircraft. So you're looking at maybe 40 to 50 million a year for them to sort out this.
Well, yes, I think so. I think some countries, perhaps a smaller, well-equipped, well-trained mercenary force would probably be the answer.
It's an extraordinary statement for a senior UN commander to make. But as he inspects yet another huge cache of captured weapons, General Jetley knows that as long as the rebels have access to diamonds, they'll also have an endless supply of arms. However, he does see one major problem in unleashing the dogs of war. He says the mercenaries would also be attracted by the diamonds, and he fears they could perpetuate the conflict to keep the money rolling in.
Being a United Nations man myself, I feel these sort of arrangements are not really healthy. I mean, let's forget it. There are no good Samaritans anymore. There's no altruism anywhere. These are words in the dictionary. So everybody comes for some money, and the more you get, the better it is.
There are also questions over the accountability of military freelancers. For every contractor such as Neil Ellis, who insists he'll only work for a legitimate government, there are a dozen soldiers of fortune who will fight for the highest bidder. Down there somewhere, training the rebels, are Ukrainians, Israelis, even one or two of Ellis's old comrades from South Africa.
Okay, Julia, I'm loading up for the first jump. And if you go last row of buildings along the stretch, you can see what I load up.
And on the ground, there are allegations that soldiers for hire disregard civilian casualties, that attacks by this gunship are often indiscriminate.
We're realistic in terms of accepting that, unfortunately, there are going to be civilian casualties within military installations or close by. That's part of the reality of war. But what we have a problem with is when they target and rocket public places where there's a high concentration of civilians. This is what has been happening.
How do you identify a target? What is a target for you when you control?
Normally a vehicle. If there are vehicles in enemy areas which we know there's strongholds, we go to those areas. Vehicles are targets. And also, of course, people. If you see RUF, you can tell the difference between the rebel and the civilian. You get the feel. So you can tell the difference. And normally rebels are carrying guns. Civilians are carrying a gun. If a civilian is carrying a gun, he's a rebel. So there's a target.
For Ellis and his crew, this conflict has become very personal. They've stuck it out for 5 years, kept fighting when nearly everyone else had fled. At one point, without an employer, they weren't even paid for it. Now flying for the Sierra Leone army, Ellis has the discreet support of the British, who've placed an Air Force liaison officer on his team and make sure his paychecks keep coming.
Enjoy the job. And obviously we're earning some money to keep ourselves going. But the other point is, I want to stay here. I like this country. And the people are nice. And I believe there's a lot of potential here. So I'm intending to make this my country, where I'm going to stay, where I'm going to retire.
This is another reason he keeps flying. Mamuna is 3 years old. 18 months ago, a drug-crazed rebel hacked off her arm. A random attack could instill terror in the local community. People continue to be butchered or mutilated every day because the international community has been unable to stop a murderous rebel.
Certainly something has to be done, because if the past is any indication of what the cost in human life and the cost of suffering of the civilian population in this country, any continued rebel activity is just going to contribute to this vast pain that the Sierra Leoneans are suffering.
And so the war drags on. The UN on the beach, contemplating what went wrong. The British warship offshore, engaging in a bit of good old-fashioned gunboat diplomacy, while the gunship sets off on another mission. Mercenaries or military contractors, it doesn't really matter what they're called. But for Sierra Leone, they could be the best last chance.
boxing glove now. And this was dislocated in here. And it went from the left hand. That's when I realised I've had serious issues with this one because I was snapped in half. Compound fracture, my bone was actually sticking up. I remember looking at my hands and going, wow, I'm in real trouble now.
You guys get the green stop?
We need a doc up here. If you can get one here, we need a doc now.
The paramedic trying to put in pain relief. The driver was in a bad way, unconscious, Alex. He was an ex-welterweight. And younger, maybe being old himself. I don't know what you do that, and I refused the medication. I said, go and help Alec first.
I got you, brother. I got you, brother.
Straight away, my brain told us to get up on my feet. Get up. That's when I realised that this was for real. I couldn't move my toes. Paralysed here, broken back here. At the time, never for 1 second thought that I wasn't disabled because I knew this was serious. Not any feelings in my legs, my toes, nothing. Can't remember much, but what I do remember is when I was passing out, one of the guys kept slapping, telling us, stay awake, stay awake. At this point, he just wanted to get happy, tired, cozy, whatever you want to call it. You're basically going to go the other way if you do not find us. And the lads know this, so they're keeping you awake at the time by slapping you right into the car, into their hospital. And that's when I was given pain relief. After a day or two, when I was brought around again, I was told that the surgeon thought I could do a better job with my hands. And he was given permission to operate again. As you can see, I've got some use of them. They don't close, but they're by the grace of God quiet. At least I could use them again. And I'm back in the real world, yeah. I do realise now, at this age, I shouldn't be here. But I'm seeing for a reason. I'm not a big guy. Mistakes at times are huge. They're by the grace of God quiet. On another, but inshallah, God's will. Said that for years now. I keep saying to the day I die, inshallah. God's will. Stands for simple, your mentality. Certain guys are brought into this life to protect others. That's always been the case. No one likes a bully in school. No one likes seeing weak people being abused by stronger people. Certain guys like myself, a fight will always step up for the weaker person. That to me then resembles being a warrior because certain guys are born leaders. No fools, wolves and no sheep. That's where I see it now.
That just walks in. Stop. I'm just looking for the roadworks. Can't see anything yet. Negative, Barry. Push it. Go around here. Go push it. That's going the wrong way. That's the way we went now. Wait, push it. More, push it.
I've been a soldier from an early age. My father was in the army for 14 years. My older cousin was a corporal in the parachute regiment, my battalion, the 1st Battalion. My older brother, Raymond, my biggest brother, was like my hero to me when I was up and coming. And he was training me because he was training for going away to get his red beret and qualify as a paratrooper. So he was always there, operating hostile environments, parachuted to local countries and named some like Germany, the USA, Norway, Jordan, and active duty in places like Iraq, Afghanistan, Africa, was through my lifetime.
So driving through the middle of fucking nowhere. Gaz, get his best side.
monsieur.
Experience it. A vehicle already and then see the effects. Monsieur, c'est beau. C'est horrifique. Et c'est une part. Basically, see will it be up there on the wall? Will it be somebody's hand? 20 feet away, will it be somebody's leg? That side of the road. Smell death. You can't put that on a movie. You can't put that on a book. It's real. It's the same as what is it? What good for the first time. It's real. Some people may become immune to the sights of death that we see on a daily occurrence. Yeah, but that's not a natural comes from any human being. When you go back to the base or wherever, where your roots is, whatever, certain cases like myself in the past that I've seen me going on and come to clear. Somebody's brains for the back of the vehicle, which will leave me your mate, your brother. Next man, there'll be a bucket of water. Tell them we've staged from a vehicle. This has been shown up. I mean, it's very hard to deal with. Sadly, a lot of us guys bury things to the back of our heads because it's like falling off a bike. What do? You've got to get back on. And as a professional soldier, you've got to get back on that bike because you've got a job to do. So the minute you get up there the next day or the day after and do your job, and the enemy's winning, simple as that. As you noticed, I've got a lot of tattoos. Some of them represent more than others. The most important one on mine is the Parachute Regiment cap badge, which a lot of guys in the regiment wear. That's proud, pride, and so they should. So that's never been covered over. A lot of tattoos have been. We've got other things that signify death, which is strikes on the trigger finger. The strikes were put on for certain reasons, for certain kills. Simple as that. Obviously, it should be a lot more than that, but these were the ones that meant something to me at the time. Same as MOB stood for Mercenaries of Baghdad again. That was a group of us. They went under that name and called themselves that. Sad but true, 4 got a tattoo, the other 3 are dead. When I decided to leave the military, I came back to civilian life, but I just found it very, very hard to gave me the lads around me. The civilians just had nothing in common. I missed the bond, I missed the brotherhood, you know. And sadly, I was looking for more action, you know, I wanted something with my life. Sad but true. And this call came up in 2003 after the invasion, when the Americans and Brits and all the rest of the coalition hit Iraq. Whether it was right or wrong, that's not for me to say, that's politics. Whatever happened was there was suddenly $18 billion put in the kitty for the reconstruction of Iraq. This then led to the call being put out for ex-soldiers. It took a lot of years to find myself in that environment when I felt this is it, I've arrived, this is my war. People always say, what was the scariest? How do you define a round zipping you when the snipers are shot and you suddenly realise there's a hole in the wall that was meant for you, had your name on? And I've always lived life believing if that's got your name on it, you're not going to avoid it, it will find you. The majority of guys who went over there with me are dead now. I've went through a lot of them, the majority of them are dead, definitely. Oh! Holy shit! Yes, training can prevent a lot. Yes, you can shoot and scoot, move positions or whatever. When you're in an environment where the enemy are using suicide tactics, how do you beat a suicide bomber? Because that's the problem. It was just mad.
I know, mate.
It just happened, mate.
I know.
Small.
Let's get some done, that. Shit.
Stop this kind of thing. All the this, you gotta stop. Everything they need to first stop doing. Expose them and see the regular just that's it. They won't give a they're looking for somebody to
from outside, we say the ceasefire will or from Mr. Taylor time on his side. For each time he asks for ceasefire, if he say the ceasefire means he's mobilizing his men to come and attack more.
Lay down with them. They're thinking on all those things. Yeah. So problem they for the problem.
Well, politically, I think we're waiting to try to implement the Accra agreement, and there will be, I believe, some movement on that next week when some of the council members come back, and when we have some visitors from Accra that will be talking. Well, it seems to be a sort of a stalemate and a series of fights that don't get anywhere. We have seemingly all the time, not all the time, but once every 2 or 3 days, an attempt to attack BTC, Barclay Training Center, and then it's repulsed. They fight for a while, and they go back to where they came from, and then they go back at it again 2 or 3 days later. It's really what I'd call a stalemate.
Every morning we decide to sit down to see what the day can bring for us. But most of the time when the people shoot at us, we have to respond to the. You cannot sit down, somebody can kill you or cut you, slaughter you, and just go. No. You have to defend yourself.
France, à la demande des autorités maliennes et de l'ONU, lance ce qui allait être la plus grosse opération hors coalition depuis la fin de la guerre d'Algérie. L'opération Serval, du nom de ce petit félin du Sahel. Serval, plus de 4500 hommes et femmes déployés. Leur mission, mettre un coup d'arrêt aux offensives des terroristes, rendre son intégrité territoriale au Mali et assurer la sécurité des 5000 ressortissants français. L'opération Serval, c'est à la fois une formidable campagne aéroterrestre, un immense défi logistique et une incroyable manœuvre interarmes. Retour sur le terrain, avec les forces terrestres, avec la brigade Serval armée par la 3e brigade mécanisée, la brigade Montsabert. Sa devise, un seul but, la victoire. En 2012, des groupes terroristes prennent le contrôle du nord du Mali. Ils imposent dans les villes conquises la charia comme seule et unique loi. Le 5 janvier 2013, coordonnant leurs efforts, ces groupes lancent une vaste offensive. Une centaine de pick-up lourdement armés foncent vers le sud. L'armée malienne, dépassée, submergée par le nombre, se replie. La ville de Kona tombe le 10 janvier à 16h. Pour les rebelles, la route de Bamako est ouverte. Rien ne semble pouvoir les arrêter.
J'ai donc décidé que la France répondra aux côtés de nos partenaires africains à la demande des autorités maliennes. Elle le fera strictement dans le cadre des résolutions du Conseil de sécurité des Nations Unies et elle sera prête à arrêter l'offensive des terroristes si elle devait se poursuivre.
La déclaration du président ouvre alors la voie aux forces spéciales. En tête, les aéronefs de leur 4e régiment d'hélicoptères. La colonne de pick-up est stoppée. Aux commandes de sa gazelle, le lieutenant Daniel Boiteux est touché. La France vient de perdre son premier soldat au Mali. Dans la nuit, les premiers bombardements commencent. La campagne aérienne est commandée au début à partir de N'Djamena, puis depuis la France du poste de commandement de Lyon-Montverdun par le général Borel. Guidés par un avion de la Marine nationale de type Atlantique 2, les avions de chasse de l'armée de l'air lancent leurs bombes sur les colonnes de véhicules et sur les bases arrières des terroristes. Malgré ce bombardement, la ville de Diabali tombera le 14 janvier. Mais cette victoire sera leur dernière. Les forces françaises prépositionnées au Tchad et en Côte d'Ivoire se mettent en alerte. À Bamako, la capitale malienne, les marsouins des 2e et 21e régiments d'infanterie marine et les légionnaires du 1er étranger de cavalerie sont arrivés et s'apprêtent à entrer en guerre. Ensemble, ils forment une entité propre, appelée GTIA, le GTIA numéro 1.
On monte un peu en pression au niveau d'un déploiement éventuel. Donc on m'a demandé de me tenir prêt avec ma compagnie et être déployé sur très court préavis. C'est pour ça que vous voyez toutes les sections, tous les marsouins en train de se préparer. Leur musette est prête et au claquement de doigts, on est prêt à être déployé sur le terrain. Alors, je commande une compagnie d'infanterie, donc ce sont des combattants spécialistes du combat, soit embarqués sur véhicules blindés, soit du combat débarqué, du combat de rencontre sur le terrain.
L'opération Serval doit relever son premier défi. Il lui faut mettre en place une force d'intervention autonome d'une importance rarement égalée pour mener une action offensive dans les délais les plus brefs. C'est un balai aérien incroyable qui se joue alors dans la capitale malienne. Des avions de transport tactique et stratégique en provenance de métropole et de nos bases africaines se croisent. Les uns après les autres, ils déposent hommes et matériel. Et en France, l'alerte Guépard est déclenchée. Le Guépard, c'est le dispositif d'alerte de l'armée française. Il permet de déployer dans des délais courts une force brigade d'infanterie de marine, de la 11e brigade parachutiste et de la brigade de renseignement. À Toulon, les chars AMX 10RC du RICM et les véhicules blindés de combat d'infanterie du 92e régiment d'infanterie embarquent à bord du bâtiment de projection et de commandement d'Ixmude de la Marine nationale. Les militaires de l'armée de terre vont mettre 10 jours pour rallier Dakar, première étape avant de rejoindre la Mali. Ces unités composent un groupement tactique interarmes aux ordres du colonel Baird, le GTIA numéro 2. Ces GTIA sont des regroupements d'unités au savoir-faire complémentaire autour d'un régiment qui en est le noyau. Le GTIA 1, commandé par le colonel Chaise, est déjà sur le sol malien. Le GTIA numéro 3, principalement armé par le 1er régiment d'infanterie de marine et commandé par le colonel Goujon, est acheminé par voie aérienne et prépositionné à Niamey, au Niger. Enfin, le GTIA numéro 4, le bataillon parachutiste aux ordres du colonel Desmeules, lui à Abidjan, en Côte d'Ivoire. Les légionnaires parachutistes du 2e REP forment l'ossature de ce GTIA. À ces 4 GTIA viennent s'ajouter les aéronefs du GAM, le groupement aéromobile aux ordres du colonel Kou, chef de corps au 5e régiment d'hélicoptères de combat. Dans le même temps, sur l'aéroport de Bamako, de jour comme de nuit, les avions de chasse croisent les avions de transport. Le défi logistique de Serval se réalise. Une antenne chirurgicale aéroportée rejoint Bamako et s'y installe. Cet hôpital de campagne ultramoderne est déployé en une nuit.
Là, actuellement, nous avons trouvé un local qui convient à l'installation d'un bloc opératoire, d'une salle de surveillance et post-interventionnelle, d'une salle de déchocage et d'un local hospitalisation. Et nous sommes actuellement en train de gréer ces locaux avec la priorité qui est de créer un bloc opératoire en autonomie capable de recevoir un premier PC.
Une dizaine de pays alliés apportent leur soutien à des niveaux divers. Parmi eux, la Belgique engage 2 hélicoptères qui réaliseront de nombreuses missions de soutien sanitaire tout au long du mandat. Mais cette période est marquée par l'arrivée des premiers éléments de la MISMA, la mission internationale de soutien au Mali, composée d'une quinzaine de pays d'Afrique avec comme premier pourvoyeur d'hommes le Tchad, dont le contingent atteindra 2400 hommes. Et pendant que les forces spéciales continuent leur travail de neutralisation de l'adversaire, les Rafales, les Rage 2000D et F1CR de l'armée de l'air bombardent des positions ennemies jusque dans leur base arrière.
Combien de temps encore?
7 secondes. Le temps du sanglier.
La situation se stabilise et une première priorité se dégage. Sécuriser la ville de Markala, véritable verrou sur le fleuve Niger. Le 16 janvier, la brigade Serval se lance dans la bataille. Un sous-groupement tactique du 21e RIMA rejoint ce point hautement stratégique. Le renseignement parle d'un millier de rebelles. L'opération est à haut risque. Les marsouins prennent position de part et d'autre du fleuve Niger, bien décidés à stopper toute tentative d'incursion rebelle. Mais l'ennemi refuse l'affrontement. Le GTIA numéro 1 recevra donc l'ordre de se remettre en route et de reprendre la ville de Diabali. Le 17 janvier, la mission est remplie, Diabali est libéré. Le 21 janvier, le poste de commandement de la brigade Serval arrive à Bamako, avec son chef, le général Barrera. Rapidement, une évidence apparaît à l'état-major de la 3. Il faut lancer une action sur la ville symbolique de Tombouctou. Ce sera l'opération Oryx.
On va partir de Bamako, on va arriver à Ségou, 235 km.
Les marsouins du GTIA numéro 1, guidés par les hélicoptères du GAM, s'apprêtent à réaliser un raid de 1000 km à travers le désert malien. Les hommes et les véhicules vont souffrir dans un pays 2 fois plus grand que la France. Et la première problématique rencontrée sera la logistique. Sur une longueur égale à la distance entre Lille et Marseille, paiement en vivres va peser lourd sur la réussite de cette opération. Le bataillon logistique va réaliser cet exploit, le service des essences en particulier. Pendant toute la durée des opérations, en tout lieu et en tout temps, il assure avec brio cette mission pourtant complexe. Pour éviter la rupture, il lui faut acheminer depuis Bamako le précieux carburant vers les lignes de front. Pendant que la colonne, aux ordres du colonel Gèze, fonce vers Tombouctou, depuis Paris, le Centre de planification et de conduite des opérations, le CPCO, décide de mener une deuxième opération combinée, la prise de la ville de Gao, à 500 km plus à l'est. Une colonne blindée fonce vers la ville. En l'air, les soldats du 1er régiment de chasseurs parachutistes, les Rapaces, s'apprêtent à effectuer un posé d'assaut sur son aéroport. Malgré quelques brefs accrochages avec les arrière-gardes terroristes, l'aéroport est saisi et la ville est rapidement reprise. L'ennemi laissera dans sa fuite beaucoup d'armements et de matériel. Mais les nouvelles de Tombouctou ne sont pas bonnes. Le général Barrera ordonne alors au GTIA 1 d'accélérer. Il craint en effet d'arriver trop tard et décide une action combinant simultanément un raid blindé et un parachutage.
7h à 10h, on s'empare des bâtiments, on fouille les bâtiments et on installe un dispositif de contrôle de zone.
À Abidjan, en Côte d'Ivoire, les légionnaires du 2e REP préparent donc cette opération aéroportée dont l'ampleur n'a plus été vue depuis le saut sur Kolwezi en 1978. Embarquant à bord des avions, les parachutistes du colonel Demeule s'apprêtent à être largués sur le sol malien. Le GTIA 4 saute le 27 janvier à 23h sur les abords nord de Tombouctou, pendant que les blindés du GTIA 1 s'emparent de l'aéroport. La manœuvre est parfaite. Là encore, l'ennemi pourtant présent le jour même prend la fuite. La nouvelle se répand dans la population. Les Français sont là. Sous les applaudissements, les soldats du bataillon Gèze entrent en libérateur dans la ville. Avec la prise de ces deux villes que sont Gao et Tombouctou, l'emprise française sur la boucle du Niger se renforce. Il s'agit maintenant de s'implanter et de créer une vraie ligne de défense contre toute attaque des terroristes.
Ouais, si Papa 4 reçu, pour nous, on reste en surveillance sur le même objectif.
À Gao, les hommes du 1er RCP sécurisent l'immense plateforme aéroportuaire où le poste de commandement G08 de la 11e brigade parachutiste s'installe. Mais des poches de rebelles subsistent et les mortiers de 81 mm entrent en action pour rappeler que la force est présente en ville. Sur les rives du fleuve Niger, les cavaliers du 1er REC ont quant à eux déployé leurs chars Saguet en observation, prêts à stopper toute contre-offensive des rebelles. À Tombouctou, le contrôle de zone commence. Il s'agit d'assurer autour de la ville une bulle de sûreté, où le ravitaillement et la préparation des opérations pourront se réaliser sans risque d'attaque terroriste. Un nouveau pont aérien doit être mis en place. À Abidjan, des sapeurs du génie embarquent avec un bulldozer dans un avion Hercule. Ils sont parachutés sur l'aéroport de Tombouctou. En une journée, la piste de 2050 mètres est déblayée et réouverte. Dès le lendemain, le chef d'état-major des armées, l'amiral Guillot, accompagné par le commandant opératif de l'opération Serval, le général de Saint-Quentin, l'inaugure.
chapeau pour votre état d'esprit, pour votre résistance, parce que je sais que vous étiez en fin de séjour au Tchad. Vous êtes reparti directement. Et puis, chapeau, parce que tout ça, c'est bien pour le succès des armes de la France. On continue comme ça. Merci, messieurs.
Laissée en partie détruite par les rebelles, la ville ne dispose plus d'eau ni d'électricité. Les hommes de la brigade tentent de résoudre ce problème.
Il s'agit de remettre en place un dispositif de production d'eau pour la force. Donc à cet effet, il nous faut trouver la pompe et s'assurer de sa remise en fonction. On va chercher maintenant faire l'analyse de l'eau là-dessus.
Mais la voie du ciel reste la première des réponses à la question du ravitaillement. Que ce soit par parachutage ou grâce aux liaisons aériennes, les personnels du 1er régiment du train parachutiste et de l'armée de l'air s'affairent jour et nuit pour préparer et acheminer sur les lignes de front les vivres, munitions et matériel nécessaires à la réussite de la mission. De l'opération. Mais le danger reste présent. Un homme sur une moto a en effet été abattu alors qu'il tentait de faire exploser une bombe au milieu des lignes françaises.
Tu vois ce qui se passe en fond de tableau, là, dans la petite rue, entre les tôles et puis les premières maisons. Là.
La charge qu'il portait est immédiatement sécurisée par les sapeurs du génie.
Pour les plans, c'est quoi exactement? Regardez, ça, c'est l'explosif artisanal, avec des billes. Ça, c'est l'explosif fondu militaire. Et puis là, j'imagine qu'il y a... D'accord. Ouais, il y a ça.
Malgré quelques accrochages dans l'après-midi, la bataille est gagnée.
On maintient vraiment un dispositif de sûreté à 360 degrés, parce qu'on est sûr de rien. Et pour ça, on va vraiment s'appuyer sur l'enseignement que les Maliens pourront nous procurer.
On dénombrera une vingtaine de morts du côté rebelle, contre 8 blessés dans les rangs franco-maliens. L'ennemi vient de subir un sacré revers. Est-ce suffisant pour entamer sa détermination? Comme pour les Français à l'ouest, les Tchadiens viennent d'affronter les rebelles à l'est, un affrontement d'une grande violence. En une seule journée, les forces tchadiennes ont 26 morts et 68 blessés. Ils sont pris en charge par les personnels de la chaîne médicale française.
Vous allez avec les premières CP. Au fur et à mesure, ils nous basculeront les patients dans la tente. Ok. C'est ceux qui ont besoin d'analyse. D'accord, on a la première tente. Et on se remet comme...
Dans le ventre, t'as rien, hein? Ah, ici.
Toute la nuit, les hélicoptères de groupement aéromobile transportent les blessés.
Et si tu continues à parler, c'est très bien. Ok? Ça veut dire que tu vas bien. D'accord?
Le plan Mascal, dispositif mis en place lors de pertes massives, est déclenché. Cette nuit et la journée qui suivra seront les plus sombres de l'opération Serval et marqueront tous les combattants, particulièrement les personnels du service. C'est la puissance de feu des blindés, de l'artillerie, le ministre de la Défense, M. Jean-Yves Le Drian, pouvoir se ravitailler. Et tata, et tata. Ils ont su relever le même défi, celui de n'avoir qu'un seul but, la victoire.
United States Senator. I am the United States Senator, and we talking on behalf of the war that's going on.
People on Instagram are making huge money from their posts, and it seems to be a big secret that most normal people don't know about.
You hired Mr. Manchin first as Assistant U.S. Attorney in 1997, correct?
I'm not sure of the date, but I did hire him as an Assistant U.S. Attorney here in Washington, D.C.
And would it surprise you to know that he is a political contributor to President Obama's campaign and indeed served as a volunteer in Obama for America and assisted in the vetting of potential vice presidential candidates?
I am confident that he has the ability, the capacity to investigate this case in a nonpartisan, independent, thorough, and aggressive way.
Well, I would suggest the question that raises by your answer is whether you have the independence and ability to conduct the investigation if, in fact, all of this comes back through you and given your track record. I just want to go over.
Well, my track record, I think, is consistent.
I didn't ask you a question.
Well, no,
I will give you a chance to respond in a moment.
My record, I think I'll stand on, and I have shown a capacity to investigate people within this administration. We have brought leak cases. Let's focus on those. We have brought.
No, let's not filibuster the time. Let me talk about your record. You misled Congress in February 2011 and claimed that there never had been a gun walking program, and then had to retract that in November 2011. You misled Representative Issa in May 2011, saying you did not learn about the Fast and Furious program until the spring of 2011. And then you had to admit to Senator Grassley that you learned about those tactics in January of 2011. You have defied the lawful and legitimate oversight responsibilities of the House of Representatives and of the Senate. You've resisted producing documents. You produced about 7,600 documents out of a pool of at least 80,000 documents that would be responsive. And you failed to respond to my letter of August 2011, where I asked you about gun walking tactics that occurred in my state. So 16 months after Fast and Furious was uncovered and Brian Terry lost his life in the service to his country at the hands of a drug cartel member who shot him using a weapon that was allowed to walk under this program, there's been zero accountability at the Department of Justice. You won't appoint a special prosecutor in the face of a potential conflict of interest. You won't tell the truth about what you know and when you knew it on Fast and Furious. You won't cooperate with a legitimate congressional investigation. You won't answer my questions about gun walking in Texas. You won't take any responsibility for the failures of your inner circle, and you won't acknowledge what your top aides knowingly misled office.
Mr. Attorney General, you certainly have you are a more appropriate person to be Attorney General, so feel free to respond.
Yeah, with all due respect, Senator, there's so much that's factually wrong with the premises that you started your statement with. It's almost breathtaking in its inaccuracy. I'll simply leave it at that. If you want to talk about Fast and Furious, I'm the Attorney General that put an end to the misguided tactics that were used in Fast and Furious. An Attorney General who asked this matter to investigate this, ensure that this doesn't happen ever again. So I don't have any intention of resigning. I heard the White House press officer
Mr. Martinez, aye. Mr. McCain. Mr. McCain, aye. Mrs. McCaskill. Mr. Obama. Mr. Obama, aye. Mr. Pryor. Mr. Pryor, aye.
On this vote, the yeas are 74 and the nays are 25. Pursuant to the previous order, the amendment having attained 60 votes in the affirmative, the amendment is agreed to.
President, we have order. Mr. President,
the Senate will come to order.
The American people have a right to be frustrated with the economic crisis that they face, and we share that with them. But inaction is not an option, which is why we've worked expeditiously and in a bipartisan manner to stop a bad situation from getting even worse. It's my expectation the House of Representatives will follow suit. We all understand the process hasn't been easy, but passage of a responsible answer to the crisis is now in sight.
Senator from Illinois is recognized for 10 minutes.
We can't afford to take a risk that the economy of the United States of America, and as a consequence, the worldwide economy, could be plunged into a very, very deep hole. So, to Democrats and Republicans who've opposed this plan, I say, step up to the plate. Let's do what's right for the country at this time, because the time to act is now. It's ugly that we're here. This is a distasteful vote. None of us like this vote. But the fact is, we have a responsibility to put our country and our economy and our security and our strength ahead of all of those dislikes and do the responsible thing here today.
I am convinced we're going to get most of the money back, if not all of it back, by the way we've crafted this proposal. But I'm equally convinced if we do nothing, we're headed to a recession, maybe a depression, and you think it costs a lot now, just do nothing and see what it costs. Nobody wants to be in this spot. But if you don't want to be in these spots, don't run for office. Mr. President, I strongly oppose this legislation. It takes
So you can see the U.S. government is talking about the war. It's
I received my master's in leadership and management from WGU. The degree program was personalized.
Victory, putting her party over the top in the Senate last night. This headline from the Des Moines Register saying it all. History for Iowa. She is the first woman from that state elected to the Senate. And ABC's Cecilia Vega is in Cedar Rapids this morning with the latest. Good morning, Cecilia.
Robin, good morning to you. What a headline that is, right? What a major political upset this was here in Iowa in what had been Barack Obama territory. And it is all because of Joni Ernst, who just crushed her Democratic rival in this race, capitalizing on that anti-Obama sentiment that we saw sweep all across the country last night. What helped push her onto the national political stage? We have all seen it by now. That ad, that famous political ad where she talks about castrating hogs on a farm in Iowa. And now she says she's headed to Washington to make them squeal there too. Even Taylor Swift became a part of this race when a senior Democrat out here compared Ernst's looks to the singers. There are, though, some big firsts. You mentioned she will be the first woman headed to the Senate, to the Congress from Iowa. She also will be the first combat vet in the Senate. But Robin, I can tell you, all eyes now on 2016. The caucuses here in Iowa start in, count it, 425 days. Get ready. It's going to be a big race.
And they are counting. We know that.
Across the Capitol, a milestone in history. One after the other, women were sworn in as senators. For the first time ever, 20 U.S. senators in all, and they were lawyers, ranchers, a former governor. They're also mothers, a total of 40 children and stepchildren, as Senator Kirsten Gillibrand reminded us at her swearing in. And before the holidays, we had a chance to gather these formidable women in one room to talk about a new era. And they said they fought to win tough races, and they're not going to stop now. They are living, breathing history, climbing the stairs and sending a signal. They are 20 senators, Republican and Democrat, who say they have had it with gridlock and the way Congress works.
If they can delay a problem, pick an argument, and wait till next year, they'll do it. We don't believe in the culture of delay.
The Dean of Senate Women, Senator Barbara Mikulski. For a record 26 years, she has brought the women together for private dinners, cheering them on with her slogan,
"Square our shoulders, put your red lipstick on, and fight the revolution." I don't want people who watch this show to think we're some kind of a sorority, because we're not. We all march to the sound of different drummers.
We are also sending troops to them. Yes. That's why. Yeah.
years ago, I was thinking about how to make more passive income online so that I could work from anywhere. I was walking through Times Square in New York City on a Sunday afternoon. It was my first time in the city, and I saw one of those crazy sign spinners. All of a sudden, it hit me. No, I wasn't going to become...
Now, the civil war in Syria looks set to enter a new and even more dangerous phase, with government forces on the move to help Kurdish fighters who are under attack from Turkey. Now, Turkish forces crossed into Syria last week. The Turkish government regards the Kurdish fighters as terrorists and wants to occupy a buffer zone reaching 20 miles into Syria. The Kurds have now turned to Syria's President Assad for help. And today, Syrian government forces entered several towns just south of the border, setting up a potentially dangerous confrontation with Turkey. Our international correspondent, Ola Gerin, joins us now from the Turkey-Syria border.
Well, within the past half an hour or so, President Trump has announced sanctions on Turkey over its offensive in northern Syria. He accused Ankara of threatening peace, stability, and security. Now, his critics would say that he set all of this in motion when he withdrew US observers from positions on the border behind me, paving the way for the Turkish invasion. Earlier today, President Erdogan of Turkey said his operation would continue until what he called the ultimate victory was achieved, and his troops are moving towards the border again tonight. In the international community, there is now a growing sense of crisis. Rolling in to a hero's welcome. Troops of the Assad regime handed a victory without firing a shot, arriving today in the strategic town of Ainisa. Look who's back. The Kurds say they had to do a deal with the regime after Washington left them alone to face a Turkish invasion. The choice, they say, was compromise or genocide. Further along a key highway, the town of Tel Tamer, also back in Assad's hands. Loyalists resurfacing. I've kept this picture hidden for years, waiting for this day, he says. But for other Syrians, this about turn is a painful blow. We met Abu Saddam and his family on the Turkish side of the border. He planned to go home to Tel Tamer once Kurdish militia were gone. Not anymore.
I was shocked when they told me that the regime is now in control. We were happy when the Turkish army went in. We were hoping to go back and live happily in our village. No one can go back with the regime there.
His young relative Mohammed wants to study medicine in the UK. He can't see a future in his homeland.
I think this idea is impossible because I think the Syrian war is endless.
Does that make you feel sad?
I'm feeling sad for my country.
The war here in Syria is now in its 6th year. Hundreds of thousands are dead. Half the population have fled their homes. Half the country is in the hands of rebels or of ISIS. I've just had a rare opportunity to sit down with the country's president, Bashar al-Assad. What he says in this exclusive interview may surprise you about ISIS, the war, and Russia, about President Obama, Hillary Clinton, and Donald Trump, and about how he feels of this war personally. We met at his office here in Damascus, and as with every interview he gives to foreign news media, it was filmed by the Presidential Press Office. Mr. President, thank you for having us and allowing NBC News to ask you some important questions.
You're most welcome in Damascus.
A few weeks ago, you told lawmakers here that you would retake every inch of Syria. The US State Department called that delusional. You're a long way from winning this war, aren't you? Never mind retaking every inch of Syria.
Actually, the Syrian army has made a lot of advancement recently, and that's the goal of any army or any government. I don't think the statement of the United States
relevant. It doesn't reflect any respect to the international law, to the Charter of the United Nations. It doesn't reflect respect of the sovereignty of a country, that it had the right to take control of its land.
How long do you think this will take you to win this war?
You're talking about something that related to many factors. The most important factors: how long are the supporters of those terrorists are going to keep supporting them, especially Turkey and Qatar and Saudi Arabia, with the endorsement of some Western country, including the United States. If you don't have that support, it won't take more than a few months.
More than a few months. Yeah. You see, I've been here 10 times and I've heard your governors say it will take a month to retake Homs. It will take 6 months to retake somewhere else. It always takes longer than that. So realistically, this will take years, won't it?
That's why I said that depends on how much support the terrorists are going to have. How much recruitment are you going to have in Turkey with the Saudi money to have more terrorists coming to Syria? Their aim is to prolong the war, so they can prolong it if they want, and they've already succeeded in that. So that depends on the question. If you're talking about how much is going to take as only Syrian conflict, isolated conflict, this is where it won't take more than a few months. But if it's not isolated, as it's the case today, with the interference of many regional and international powers, it will going to take a long time, and no one has the answer that you have to. Nobody knows how the war is going to develop.
A year ago, the war was going quite differently. You made a speech in which you said you were short of troops. You had to give up some areas reluctantly. What changed after that was that Russia entered the war. That's the real reason this war is turning, isn't it? That Russia is on your side.
Definitely, the Russian support of the Syrian army has tipped the scales against the terrorists.
It's the crucial factor.
It is definitely. At the same time, Turkey and Saudi Arabia has sent more troops since that Russian legal intervention started. But in spite of that, it was the crucial factor, as you just mentioned.
You owe President Putin a lot.
Everyone who stood beside us, Russian, Iranian, and even the Chinese stood, but each one in its own way, whether political, military, or economical. Because it's not one factor. You cannot only talk about the firepower or the human resources. It's multi-factor issue. All those countries supported Syria, beside other countries supported to a lesser degree.
Has President Putin demanded anything of the deal?
When he wanted to intervene, he didn't ask for anything.
Nothing.
For simple reason. First of all, politics built on values. This is very important. The second thing, their interest is common interest with us now, because they are fighting the same terrorists that they should fight in Russia. We are fighting the terrorists that could be fighting in Europe, in the United States, anywhere else in the world. But the difference between President Putin and the other Western officials, that he could see that clearly, while the other officials in Europe or in the West in general couldn't see that. That's why his intervention is based on values and at the same time based on the interest of the Russian people.
Do you speak much with him?
When there's something to speak about, of course we speak, or through officials.
How often, for example, this year have you spoken with him?
I didn't count them, but many times. We spoke many times.
And how would you describe your relationship with him?
Very frank, very honest, mutual respect.
But he has demanded nothing of you. Is that the case?
Nothing at all.
Because the suspicion is that Russia, maybe working in concert with the United States, and Secretary of State Kerry is meeting Vladimir Putin Thursday in Moscow. The suspicion is that they are coming to some sort of deal that might be bad news for you.
First of all, regarding the first part, if you wanted to ask me for something, he would ask me to fight the terrorists, because this is where his interest as president and as a country, I mean Russia, lies. Second, regarding that allegation from time to time that the Russian made with the American, and they discussed something about the Syrian issue, like in order to give the impression that they are deciding what's going to happen in Syria. Many times, the Russian officials many times said clearly that Syrian issue is related to the Syrian people. And yesterday, Minister Lavrov said that clearly. Said we cannot sit with the American to define what the Syrian wants to do. This is Syrian issue. Only the Syrian people can define the future of their country and how to solve their problem. The role of Russia and the United States to offer the atmosphere, the international atmosphere, to protect the Syrian from any intervention. The problem in that regard that the Russians are honest, the Americans didn't deliver anything in that regard. But this is not to take the decision about what we have to do as Syrians.
So just to be clear, neither Foreign Secretary Lavrov nor President Putin has ever talked to you about political transition, about a day when you would leave power. That's never come up.
Never, because as I said, this is related to the Syrian people. Only the Syrian people define who's going to be the president, when to come and when to go. They never said a single word regarding this.
And you're not worried in the least about Secretary Kerry meeting Vladimir Putin and coming to an understanding in which you may have to leave power?
No, for one reason, because their politics, I mean, the Russian politics is not based on making deals. It's based on values. And that's why you don't see any achievement between them and the American, because different principle. The American politics based on making deals, regardless of the values, which is not the case for the Russian.
But of course, it's not just Russia that's bombing your enemies, it's the United States. Do you welcome American airstrikes against ISIS?
No, because it's not legal. First of all, it's not legal.
It's not legal for Russia to do it, is it?
No, they are invited legally and formally by the Syrian government. It's the right of any government to invite any other country to help in any issue. So they are legal in Syria, while the Americans are not legal with their allies. Of course, all of them are not legal. This is first. Second, since the Russian intervention, the terrorism has been, let's say, regressing. While before that, and during the American illegal intervention with their allies, ISIS was expanding, and the terrorism was expanding and taking over new areas in Syria. They're not serious. So I cannot say I welcome the unseriousness and to be in Syria illegal.
Thousands of missions, hundreds of airstrikes. The United States is not being serious.
The question is not how many strikes, what the achievement. That's the question. The reality is telling that since the beginning of the American airstrikes, the terrorism has been expanding and prevailing, not vice versa. It's only shrink when the Russians intervened. So this is reality. We have to talk about facts. It's not only about the pro forma action that they've been taking.
So American airstrikes are ineffective and counterproductive?
Yes, it is counterproductive in somehow. When the terrorism is growing, it is counterproductive. That's correct.
Whose fault is that? Is that a military fault, or is President Obama simply not being, let's say, ruthless enough?
Yeah. No, first of all, it's not about being ruthless. It's about being genuine. It's about the real intentions. It's about being serious. It's about having the will. The United States doesn't have the will to defeat the terrorists. It has the will to control them and to use them as a card, like they did in Afghanistan. That will reflect it on the military aspect of the issue. If you want to compare more than 120 or 30 Russians airstrike in few areas in Syria compared to 10 or 12 American allies airstrikes in Syria and Iraq, it means militarily nothing. But that military ineffectiveness is a reflection of the political will.
There was a political will, as you put it, to remove you from power. That was the will of Washington. That seems to have changed. Have you any idea why the United States has changed its mind, apparently, about your future?
No, because the problem with the American officials, they say something and they mask their intentions. They go in different ways. They say something, they say the opposite. They say something, they do something different. So you cannot tell what their real intentions. What I'm sure about that, they don't have good intentions towards Syria. Maybe they are making tactics, maneuvers, but they haven't changed their intention, as I believe.
President Obama wanted you out. He's leaving office soon, and you're staying. Did you win?
No, it's not between me and him. It's between me and whoever wants to destroy this country, and mainly the terrorists within Syria now. This is where we can win as Syrians if we can get rid of those terrorists, if we can restore the stability in Syria. This is where we win. Otherwise, we cannot talk about winning. That's true, they didn't succeed. But if they don't succeed in their plans, if it went into fiasco, doesn't mean we win the war. We have to be realistic about and precise about choosing the terms in that regard.
But one of the president's key aims, which was to remove you from power, has clearly failed. Or do you believe it's failed?
Yeah, I said he's failed, but doesn't mean I win, because for me the war is to remove me. For me the war not to stay in my position. For me the war is to restore Syria. So yeah, you're talking about two different wars. For me, I'm not fighting my war. I'm not fighting the war that the president should stay. My war is to protect Syria. I don't care about if I stay or not, as long as the Syrians don't want me to be in my position. For me, I don't care about what the other presidents want. I care about what the Syrian wants. If they want me to stay, I'm going to stay. If they want me to leave, I'm going to leave. So it's different, completely different thing.
Do you feel the United States has fundamentally misunderstood your war with ISIS, with what you might call a common enemy?
Again, it's not common enemy, because for us, we are genuine in fighting not only ISIS and al-Nusra and every affiliated to Al-Qaeda organization within Syria. They have the same, all of them are terrorists. So if we want to talk not about ISIS, about the terrorist groups, we wanted to get rid of the terrorists, we wanted to defeat those terrorists, while the United States wanted to manage those groups in order to topple the government in Syria. So you cannot talk about common interests unless they really want to fight those terrorists and to defeat them. And they didn't do that. I mean, in Iraq in 2006, they didn't try to defeat them.
But America is very genuine about fighting ISIS. ISIS is a threat to the American homeland. How can you say America is not serious?
Because ISIS has been set up in Iraq in 2006, while the United States was in Iraq, not Syria was in Iraq. So it was growing under the supervision of the American authority in Iraq, and they didn't do anything to fight ISIS at that time. So why to fight it now? And they don't fight it now. It's been expanding under the supervision of the American airplanes, and they could have seen the ISIS using the oil field and exporting oil to Turkey, and they didn't try to attack any convoy of ISIS. How could they be against ISIS? They cannot see, they don't see. How the Russians could have seen it from the first day and started attacking those convoys. Actually, the Russian intervention unmasked the American intentions regarding ISIS and the other terrorist groups, of course.
3 years ago, President Obama made a threat against you. He drew a red line and then withdrew from that and did not attack you. What do you feel about that? Is that the sign of a weak president?
That's the problem. The United States they've been promoting for years now. Only a good president is ruthless or tough, that who should go to war. This is the definition. Otherwise, he's going to be a weak president, which is not true. Actually, for the American administration, since the Second World War, they have a share in stoking the fire and conflicts in every part of this world. And as the time goes by, those administrations are becoming more and more pyromaniac. The difference now between those administrations is only about the mean, not about the goal. One of them sent his own troops, like Bush. The other one is using surrogate mercenaries. The third one using proxy, and so on. But the core is the same. Nothing has changed.
To go back to that moment 3 years ago, was that the sign of a weak United States and a weak president?
Yeah, because if you want to talk about the core, which is the war attacking Syria, they've been attacking Syria through proxies. They didn't fight ISIS. They didn't make any pressure on Turkey or Saudi Arabia in order to tell them stop sending money and personnel and every logistic support to that terrorist. They could have done so. They didn't. So actually, they are waging war, but in different way. They didn't send their troops. They didn't attack with missiles, but they sent mercenaries. That's what I mean. I mean, the same.
Did it surprise you that they didn't attack?
No, it wasn't a surprise. But I think what they are doing now had the same effect. So between mercenaries and between missiles, this one could be more effective for them. So no, I couldn't say that I was surprised.
You're a leader. By drawing a red line and not following through, has that damaged America's credibility, not just in the Middle East, but in the world?
But this credibility hasn't ever existed for us, at least since the early 70s, to be frank with you. Since we restored our relation with the United States in 1974, we never saw any administration has real credibility in every issue we dealt with. They never had it. So I cannot say that it harmed. Many of their allies, they don't believe them. I think that the American credibility, not because of what you mentioned, because of their politics in general, their mainstream politics are at all-time low. That's how I see it.
An all-time low in terms of its credibility in the world.
Generally, yeah, regarding the politics in general, not regarding Syria. Yeah.
Do you welcome the end of President Obama's term of office?
It means nothing for us, because if you change administration but you change politics, it means nothing. So it's about the politics. And in Syria, we never bet on any president coming or any president going. We never bet, because what they say in their campaign is different from what they practice after they became elected.
You've talked about presidents being the same, never changing their policy, but there will be a new president in the United States next year. Yeah. Do you hope for a new relationship? Do you believe anything like that is possible?
Yeah, of course, we always hope that next president would be much wiser than previous one, less pyromaniac, as I said, less militaristic, adventurist president. That's what we hope. But we never saw. Somehow, I mean, the difference is very marginal. So we keep hoping, but we don't bet on that hope.
So there will be a new president. There are two main choices. One of them is Donald Trump. What do you know of Mr. Trump?
Nothing. Just what I heard in the media and during the campaign. That's what I say. We don't have to waste our time hearing what they say in their campaign. They're going to change after they become elected. And this is where we have to start evaluating the president after the campaign, not during the campaign.
And you're here in Damascus. What are you hearing in the media about Mr. Trump?
The conflict between the Americans. But we don't pay much attention to it. I mean, even this rhetorics between the different, let's say, nominees is changing during the campaign. So what you hear today is not relevant tomorrow. So we cannot build our politics on day-to-day politics.
But you're following this election?
Not really. Because as I said, you don't follow anything that you cannot considered as connected to the reality yet. It's only connected to the reality when they are in office. So far, it's only rhetoric. We don't have to waste our time with rhetoric.
Simply rhetoric. So, for example, talking about Mr. Trump, anything Mr. Trump says, you wouldn't necessarily believe that would be the policy of a President Trump.
No, I'm not whether Trump or Clinton or anyone. I'm talking about in general. It's not about the names. It's a principle for every president, American president in every campaign.
He's made very few comments about Syria or the Middle East, but he's described you as a bad guy. Does that worry you?
That's his opinion. No, it's a personal opinion. He doesn't have to see me as a good guy. The question for me, do the Syrians see me as good guy or bad guy, not American person or president or nominee? I don't care about it. It's not part of my political map, let's say.
One of the things he's said and been very clear about is that he would be much tougher on ISIS. You would welcome that, wouldn't you? Because you've just said President Obama isn't serious.
You don't have to be tougher. This word doesn't have any meaning in reality, in real life, in this region. You have to fight ISIS in different ways. ISIS not only fighters, you have to attack them with the strongest bomb or missile. It's not like this. The issue of terrorism is very complicated. It's related to the ideology. How can you be tough against the ideology of ISIS? That's the question. How can you tough regarding their economy? How they offer money and donations? How can you deal with that?
I think Mr. Trump is talking about military toughness. He wants to...
It's not enough. You have to be smart. It's not enough to be tough. First of all, you have to have the will. You have to be genuine. Then you have to be smart. Then you can be tough. And being tough and being military active, this is important. But this is the last option when you fulfill the first criteria.
From what you know of Mr. Trump, is he smart enough?
I don't know him. When I sit with him face to face, I can judge him. But I only look at the person on the TV. You know, on the TV you can manipulate everything. You can make, you can rehearse. You can prepare yourself. So that's not.
Do you like what you see on TV of Mr. Trump?
I don't follow the American elections, as I said, because we don't bet on it. We don't follow it.
He seems to respect President Putin. Does that give you hope that maybe he's a man you could do business with?
If he's genuine, I think he's saying the right thing, because every person on earth, whether agree or disagree with President Putin, he should respect him, because he's a respecter. He respect himself, and he respect the other, respect his values, respect the interest of his own people, and he's honest and genuine. So how can you respect someone in with those descriptions? If he's genuine, I think he's correct. That's what I can say.
Mr. Trump has also made comments about Muslims and not allowing Muslims into the United States. Did that anger you, upset you?
Yeah, especially in Syria, as a melting pot country made of many, many religions and sects and ethnicities. We think this diversity is richness, not the opposite. It's the way the government and the way the influential forces in the society that made it a problem or a conflict. If you can have all those people living in one society with real integration, with harmony, this is richness. This is for the interest of any society, including the United States.
So Mr. Trump should not have made those comments about Muslims.
Anyone shouldn't make any discriminative rhetoric in any country. I don't believe in this kind of rhetoric, of course.
Mr. Trump has no experience in foreign policy. Does that worry you?
Who had this experience before? Obama or George Bush or Clinton before? None of them had any experience. This is the problem with the United States. You have to look for a statesman who has real experience in politics for years, not because to have position in Congress for a few years or Minister of Foreign Affairs, for example. That doesn't mean you have the experience. The experience in states should be much, much longer. So we don't think that most of the presidents in the United States were well versed in politics.
So a man with no experience in foreign policy in the White House is not necessarily dangerous in your view?
Anyone who doesn't have experience in any position, a White House or in the presidential palace in Syria or in another country, of course it is dangerous for the country, generally. Of course, the United States as a great power, it could have more impacts on the rest of the world. But it's not only about the experience. At the end, when you have institutions, they can help. It's about the intention. Is it going to be with good experience, but with militaristic intentions, destruction intentions, and so on? So you have to talk about many factors. It's not enough to talk only about the experience. Or corporate. There's no Iraqi dead. I've been in power for 16 years, not for 45 years.
You've been in power for 16 years. My question is, are you going to go on and on?
In my position, I have to ask the Syrian people, if they don't want me, I have to leave right away, today. If they want me, I have to stay. It depends on them. I mean, if I want to stay, again, their will, I cannot produce, I cannot succeed. And I don't think I have the intention not to succeed.
How do you think history will remember you?
How I hope the history will remember me. I cannot foretell. I'm not fortune teller. I hope that the history will see me as the man who protected his country from the terrorism and from the intervention and saved its sovereignty and the integrity of its land.
Because you know what the first draft of history is saying, that you're a brutal dictator. You're a man with blood on your hands, more blood on your hands than even on your father.
No, again, I will draw that example. If you have a doctor who cut the head because of a gangrene to save the patient, you don't say he's a brutal doctor. He's doing his job in order to save the rest of the body. So when you protect your country from the terrorists, and you kill terrorists, and you defeat terrorists, you're not a brutal. You are a patriot. That's how you look at yourself, and that's how the people want to look at you.
And that's how you see yourself as a patriot.
I cannot be objective about looking at myself. The most important thing, how the Syrian look at me. That's the real and objective opinion, not my opinion. I cannot be objective about myself.
Mr. President, thank you very much for answering NBC's questions and for taking time to talk to me. Thank you very much. President Assad, a man not just defiant, but seeming confident, sure of victory, sure of his position, happy with Russia, unhappy with President Obama. But this war is far from over. Just miles from here, people are still dying. Syria's agony is still unrelenting. I'm Bill Neely from Damascus. Goodbye.
Hey, NBC News fans, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights,